And we are live. Welcome to this week's episode of the Bullpen Cart Podcast presented by ThunderblogSports.com. I, of course, am Jordy Cannell, the G-Man. Joining me, as always, is my man all the way up from Boston, Massachusetts, Greg Piatelli. How are you, my friend?
Crushing life, Jordy. I can see clearly now. The rain is gone. All obstacles in my way. The sun's out. The tank is clean. Life is good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's finally some nice weather. I finally got to go play some golf this week. Had a little week off last week because of all this rain, and it was quite wet over the weekend. But had to play at a couple other tracks because the home club had its senior tournament over the weekend. So this is an interesting weekend of golf. Some other stuff happened too. Went to a couple Phillies games, so I'm sure we're going to talk about that in Stadium Snacks. Just excited. Talk some baseball. Let's jump right into it because it was a pretty awesome week. If we're talking College World Series, Major League Baseball, All-Star voting coming out, and the finals are underway right now. They go through Thursday, I think at 4:00. But Greg, how are you feeling right now about everything that's going on in baseball as we approach the halfway mark?
It's bittersweet because the Red Sox are playing. They're playing decently, and they're starting to get some of their pitchers back. Their offense is really exploding here, and all that good jazz. But the issue is that some of the teams ahead of them are continuing to do well. So it's either going to be a battle to make the wild card, or they're not going to make the playoffs. And that's, not that I'm ruling out the division as of now, but it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the Red Sox to mount a comeback at this point. How are you doing?
I'm feeling all right. It's been the darkest point of the Phillies season. We touched on it a little bit halfway through that losing streak. But yeah, then you get swept by the Marlins over the weekend. It was a little tough to swallow. But we had Chase Utley night Friday night, had the great moment with Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they finally had their catch, Greg. It was documented. We put it up on our Instagram. It was a great moment. But yeah, I mean, this has just been a fun season of baseball so far. And it's always that weird point now that basketball and hockey are over and we've gone through the awards, Greg, so we're really out of it. What did we ever do before the awards were after the seasons for hockey and basketball? But yeah, I mean, the All-Star Game is one of my favorite times of the year, so I'm excited of all the voting and all that stuff. And I think the format itself, the change this year, I think it's gone pretty well so far with the primaries and the final vote. I think that's an interesting concept. I don't think we're going to get like the last one in and all that sort of stuff once they announce the final teams. So that's a little bit of a bummer because that at least gave you a little more say on some more of the roster rather than just the starters. But yeah, I mean, the Phils are slowly but surely figuring themselves out, and picking up the pieces. You got the Lucky Bamboo going, and I'm just excited for the calendar to flip to July and really get regular season baseball really put into another gear. Because I think with the one trade deadline, all the different rumors we're going to hear out throughout July. Then you get August where the pennant race really starts to build up, and then September baseball when football comes back too. Just a fun, the 3 months have now really distinguished themselves into different themes, and I think that's good for baseball, and I think it's just fun for sports fans in general.
Yeah, and that was a long-winded answer for me asking how you were doing, but
I'm good. I mean, you asked that before, aside from the unfortunate incident for me on Saturday night, which we don't really need to go into.
Listen, I'm just fucking with you. Honestly, it's the All-Star voting. I'm pumped because the fans don't know jack shit in that a guy like Xander Bogaerts, who's leading all American League shortstops in most offensive categories, is like not even on the short list for a starter. So
yeah, you want to jump into that first before we go into hot and cold players of just who got fucked over. Xander Bogaerts is definitely one.
Yeah, I mean, without having the full list of who the finals are and what have you in front of me, just knowing strictly my own team, which is
yeah. Do you want me to read through the three and say if you think good or bad, and we can jump into it? I have it in front of me, and I was starting to vote as you were talking, and then figured we might as well talk about it because the National League first base is a little bit atrocious to me. It's Josh Bell, the Pirates, Freddie Freeman of the Braves, and Anthony Rizzo. All three are having good seasons, but none are having as good of a season as Peter Alonso, the rookie from the Mets. And I think it's appalling that he's not on there. I mean, the Mets are, they're not the Yankees who ballot stuffed this entire thing, which we can also talk about. But it's sad to see that. I mean, Freeman's having a great year. Bell, good that he made it, because that's something where you could have seen a small market team like the Pirates fall under the radar with a New York team, Chicago, and then the Braves, which basically corner the market of the SEC. So that's my biggest.
Did Bellinger make it as a outfielder?
Yeah, he's an outfielder.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a good one. We can certainly go position by position if you wanted, but yeah, I think Pete Alonso has been having an incredible season, and one of the home run leaders in all of baseball, right?
Yep, exactly.
So not only are you missing out on a chance for one of the home run leaders in all of baseball to be in the home run derby, but
I'm sure he'll be invited.
Yeah, maybe he'll be one of the add-ons from.
He'll be a reserve player, that's for certain.
I mean, you say that, but Bell and Freeman are deserving, and are you really going to carry more than? And then I guarantee.
Yeah, but who else from the Mets would be their representative? That's the other thing you got to look at. DeGrom, and that's it.
DeGrom, yeah, DeGrom would be. I mean, and then you got to think that the Dodgers manager there, Dave Roberts, is going to put in Max Muncy, because why the fuck not? Or maybe Reese, but because the Phillies need someone.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. We can talk about that on Phillies talk of trying to project their representative.
Well, I mean, it's probably going to be Harper if we're being all told. They're not going to have.
I don't think it will be, though.
But they're not going to not have one of the faces of baseball at the All-Star game.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. There's more. They're a lot better. I'll put it this way: there's probably a lot more shortstops ahead of Manny Machado than there are outfielders ahead of Bryce Harper to try to put one or the other on the National League All-Star roster.
Yeah. So do you? I mean, rather than doing hot player, do you just want to go into top 3 All-Stars and stuff like that, or no?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, and then we'll get hot. Then we'll circle back to hot teams. Since we're already at this avenue.
So we did the National League first baseman. Give me the American League.
All right. So the American League are C.J. Cron of the Twins, Carlos Santana of the Indians, and Luke Voigt of the Yankees.
I mean, I would have included Whit Merrifield.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
He's having a great year, and he's one of those guys that, just like Bellinger and Muncy, plays a bunch of positions.
Yeah, and he did not get circled in for second base or outfield, which is what he also plays.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's 303, 40 RBI, 11 home runs, 56 runs. You know, his numbers are right there with Santana. He has a better batting average, more runs scored, more stolen bases, but that would be my only, maybe Joey Gallo, but I don't think he's better than the first 3 you mentioned.
Joey Gallo's on the outfield ballot.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. Having a great year. We can circle back to him, certainly. Second baseman, you have Altuve, who was hurt for most of the first half, Tommy La Stella of the Angels, and DJ LeMahieu of the Yankees.
Isn't Mastella hurt?
I think he's still healthy right now, but he's been having a pretty sweet year. 16 homers, 44 ribbies, batting 300. I think LeMahieu's the answer, though. He had a higher batting average. Been one of the reasons why the Yankees are where they are. He's been real heart and soul of a team that was pretty banged up, and that's obviously doing pretty well right now in the standings.
Yeah, no, I like it. And you know, he certainly has been great for them, and he was going to be potentially my hot player of the week. So I'm glad we're not doing that anymore, so I don't have to talk about him. But yeah, he's probably deserving of the nod.
Yeah, I would agree. National League second baseman, we got Albies of Atlanta, Ketel Marte from Arizona, and Mike Moustakas of the Brewers.
And then Baez is probably shortstop.
Yeah, he's a shortstop.
No, I like it. Any protests from you?
No, I think those are the three most deserving second basemen in the NL. I'm trying to think who else you might want to throw in there. And I'm coming up short.
Third base, what do you got?
Third base, you got for the NL, Nolan Arenado of the Rockies, Chris Bryant of the Cubs, and Josh Donaldson of the Braves.
Those three players are having great years.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I think that's spot on. I think Arenado gets the nod.
The only one you could potentially add is Rendon.
Yeah, but he was hurt for a little bit.
From Washington, he was hurt, but he also, he's got 60 less at bats than Arenado, but he's 310, 53 RBIs. He's got 9 less RBIs and 2 less home runs. So
yeah, all right, that's fair.
He may have, he's got less at bats for sure, but he's equally numbers wise as dominant or as effective as Arenado. You could argue.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arenado probably does get another face of the league.
Yeah, exactly, and one that needs a little more exposure playing in a Western division. AL third base, we got Alex Bregman, Hunter Dozier, and Urshela of the Yankees. I think Bregman's the obvious pick here.
I mean, biggest snub has to be Rafael Devers.
Yeah, he's having a pretty good year. I'm trying to think who else.
This is gonna sound like a homer thing, but between Devers and Xander Bogaerts, like those, I know Mookie and JD are finalists, and JD probably will get it because no one else is like a true DH anymore. But
yeah.
Mookie, he's there because he's the MVP from last year. But realistically, the two best players for the Red Sox team have been Devers and Xander Bogaerts, and for them not even to be on the short list is crazy to me. And my only saving grace is hope that Cora, as the manager, is going to put them on there. But Devers, statistically, more runs scored than Bregman, way less home runs, only 3 less RBIs, and has a way better batting average. He's batting 308, and Bregman is batting 259. So you can make the case, Bregman, more home runs, but equal parts RBI and better batting average for Devers. In my opinion, I just think it's hard not to.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a victim. I think Dozier probably got ballot stuffed. If we're really splitting hairs here, I think that's probably the biggest part on there.
Well, yeah, because it's just fan vote, and reality, I always think that any All-Star game, I think the fans have too much say in it. I think it really should be coaches, owners, not owners, but coaches, other players, guys who are watching the game, guys who know.
Do you like the NBA model then? Like fan votes a third, coaches are a third, players are a third?
Yeah, but don't even give the fans a vote. I understand the fans want to see the All-Stars, but reality is, like, if they're having a good year, the other players and coaches are going to vote for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a no vote for yourself clause to try to prevent that sort of thing.
Yeah, and you could even do a no vote for teammates to whatever.
Yeah, that's probably the even better answer is no vote for teammates
if we wanted to. But yeah, what do you got?
All right, so NL. Oh no, we just didn't. We'll do NL shortstops. We have Javi Baez, Trevor Story, and Dansby Swanson. I think that's a pretty solid crew. I would go with Baez just as an all-around, probably the best shortstop, but the better offensive, although his power numbers are not where Baez's are right now, is Trevor Story.
And you really think that Machado shouldn't be a finalist?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pulling up the shortstops for NL now, and just trying to boil it down that way. It's kind of weird because they have all the guys who could count as a shortstop for fantasy on there. So like Ketel Marte is on this when you boil it down on Yahoo. But yeah, I mean Machado of that he has a higher batting average than Swanson, than Eduardo Escobar, who also could have been up there, although his home actually he's at 17 homers. I was looking at triples at 5. Yeah, I don't know if he is or not. I mean, he has 17 homers, 49 ribbies, but that's, it's one more than Story. His batting average is right there, but I just don't think we've seen an awesome year out of Machado so far. I mean, it's still pretty solid, but I just think maybe he gets in over Harper as the face of the league, big offseason signing to get in there. But I just think Javi Baez is a better fielder, and he has better numbers offensively than Machado. Trevor Story is a better power hitter than any of the shortstops named. So I just think as a finalist, maybe, but I don't know. Dansby Swanson's having a pretty nice bounce back year on an Atlanta team that's been red hot recently.
Yeah. What's the American League?
AL, we mentioned there's no Xander Bogaerts, but it's Carlos Correa, Jorge Polanco, and Gleyber Torres of the Yankees. Aside from Bogaerts, pretty solid crew here. I would go probably Polanco, really good hitter, really good fielder. I know Gleyber's having a pretty awesome offensive year, but you can't really touch 50 runs scored, a 326 batting average, pretty nice walk to strikeout ratio, a slugging percentage near 540.
Yeah, the only one outside of Bogarts, maybe an Elvis Andrews from Texas. The ranking 304 batting average, 43 RBI, and 44 runs scored. So 16 stolen bases. Even a Tim Anderson from the White Sox. But yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think Polanco being as good as he's been all year, and Minnesota having scored the most or tied for the most runs. No, scoring the most runs in the American League so far to date. And I guess all the majors to date, he's a big reason. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say he should probably be a starter.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of put a bow on what you were saying of runs scored, he has 50. The only other players in the AL amongst shortstops that have higher are Bogarts, we talked about, Marcus Semien, Jesus, of the Oakland Athletics, who actually is having a pretty solid season. And he has played 80 games, but not enough power numbers, I don't think, to really vault himself anywhere. So, I mean, he's been right in the middle of that Minnesota team. So really good point there, Greg. Just wanted to emphasize it for you.
Thank you, Jordy.
Yeah, I got you. AL catchers, we got Chirinos of the Astros, McCann of the White Sox, and Gary Sanchez of the New York Yankees, who of qualified leaders on Yahoo, Gary Sanchez is the only one who pops up because he's played, I guess, had the most at-bats. But yeah, I mean, I think this is actually a nice mix. I would have maybe also thrown in Mitch Garver from the Twins. He's having himself a pretty solid year. Maybe Omar Narvaez from Seattle. Christian Vasquez, not to go too full Red Sox, but he's having himself a pretty good year. 30 ribbies in 65 games. I think that's pretty good catching numbers. I don't know. I feel like Sanchez is the play here, but the picks are pretty good across the board.
Yeah, Sanchez probably is having the best year for sure, catcher-wise. I would agree with the Garver comment. I think Vasquez is definitely playing like a top 5 catcher, but in terms of top 3, I think Sanchez, Garver, and McCann are probably should be the top 3 finalists. But obviously, Garver got nixed off of it. Who are the National League? I'd be interested to see this.
Yeah, NL is actually a really interesting finalist. It's Wilson Contreras, Yasmani Grandal, and McCann of the Cubs, Brewers, and Braves, respectively. I think that's pretty legit in terms of those picks. Real sleeper pick that probably wouldn't have gotten on there, but he's having a good offensive year, at least batting average-wise, is Tony Walters of the Rockies. He only has 1 homer, though, but 22 ribbies, still pretty good numbers from a catcher. Maybe Kurt Suzuki. He's had some nice hits. The one, though, that I think is the biggest misfire is the lack of Wilson Ramos. He has 41 ribbies. That's 3rd in catching RBIs in the National League, behind Grandal and Contreras, 2 household names when you think of catchers. And Ramos has been, journeyman catcher and having himself a pretty solid year. So that's another Met that I think is kind of got a little bit of a snub, but the 3 finalists I think are probably the correct answers.
I don't agree with that. I think both Ramos, and then your boy Real Muto, who are having much better seasons than McCann. Granted, Real Muto has a lower batting average than the others, but he's still got 36 RBIs, which is leading them or close to the top. 10 home runs, 47 runs scored himself. You could argue he is way more deserving than McCann, who only has 29 RBIs.
Sure, absolutely.
Wilson Ramos, I think the Ramos and Real Muto should be in a finalist over McCann from the Braves. So I think the only miss they have there with McCann.
Yeah, I think Grandal is the vote, though.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Before we do outfielders, why is it that only the American League has DH finalists?
I guess because they have players who actually are designated hitters, or they play enough games to be considered a designated hitter.
So then, does the National League get an extra starter? Like I'm like when it comes down to it, they're gonna say
because they do that because they do DHs for both leagues. So I think the manager just picks someone who wasn't voted in as a starter to be the DH.
But I mean, when they announce it, it's going to be
the 10 AL starters and nine NL starters.
Okay, so why didn't they just do like everyone who that they should just have done the top vote getter not in the top 3 for his position?
Say that again.
Like they should have just done the top 3 guys vote getters.
Would be who you're voting for DH
for the DH in the National League.
That would have been that probably is some form of an answer of non-finalists. You mean?
Yeah, so
that's probably what it should have been.
Random example: Real Muto let's say he came 4th for catchers, and let's say he was the number 1 vote getter that wasn't in the top 3 of any position.
Yeah,
he would be a potential finalist for DH. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I don't know if they just want to keep it. I don't know why. Maybe the theory is like if someone loses, like say Cubs fans get Wilson Contreras in, and Roberts wants to use Grandal as the DH. Maybe that's the theory. I don't know, even though that wouldn't totally work with catchers. It's a bad example, but you get what I mean of he can he gets more flexibility there, some more degrees of freedom. So I don't know. I don't know. That's a fair critique though.
Thank you, Jordy. What do we got for outfielders?
Yeah, so let's do NL because I have that in front of me. We have a lot. It's 9 finalists. It's not you're voting for 3. You have Ronald Acuna of the Braves, Albert Amora Jr. of the Cubs, Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers, Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies, Jason Hayward of the Cubs, Nick Markakis of the Braves, Jock Peterson of the Dodgers, Kyle Schwarber of the Cubs, and Christian Yelich of the Brewers.
Why don't we do
a lot of big names?
Why don't we do do you say Juan Soto?
Juan Soto is not on there.
Okay, so for me, that's the snub.
That's a big snub.
Why don't we do who we think the 3 should be for this?
Yeah, I think it's Yelich, Bellinger, and probably Charlie Blackmon.
Yeah, I was gonna say Yelich, Bellinger, and Blackmon or Acuna. I would say.
Yeah, Acuna. Yeah, it's Blackmon / Acuna, but Bellinger and Yelich have to be starters.
Yeah, just based on the years they've had for sure, and the home run race battle that they were having in the beginning of the year, but. Yelich is sort of running away with it a little bit now.
Yeah. Anybody else you think might have gotten snubbed? I'm looking through names now. Howie Kendrick, not a huge name, but he's having a good year with the Nationals as well.
Reese has had a good year.
Yeah, he doesn't count as an outfielder anymore, though. He hasn't played a single game in the outfield.
But he was snubbed at first base, too.
Yeah, he hasn't played a single game in the outfield this year, though. Scott Kingery counts as an outfielder, and he could be a sneaky pick, but I don't think enough. I don't think enough to get himself into a finalist type position.
So is what the fuck's his name? The big signing. Is he really having that bad of a year?
Who? Bryce Harper?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not terrible. He's batting close to 250. It's floated around there for the last couple of weeks. He's over 10 home runs. He's over 50 RBI, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of doubles too. Bryce Harper has. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think in terms of top 9, is he the ultimate answer there right now? He's 13 homers, 54 ribbies, 51 walks. He leads the league in walks. Cody Bellinger is just behind him, but almost 100 strikeouts already. But he leads NL outfielders in doubles. He I mean, it's just been an up and down year for him, and I think
Is he no longer in his prime?
I mean, you see this though. He's a very streaky player. You saw it when he was on the Nationals, and you see it now with the Phillies. And the Phillies have had that same run. So I don't know if he gets called in. I don't know if Reese ends up getting called in, or if it's JT Realmuto, because that's actually a sneaky good pick as well of throwing him in as a catcher. Because I don't think any of the pitchers are gonna get named to the All-Star team. Nola had a really rough start to the year. Arrieta's been up and down like he was last year. So yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to see how that all shakes out.
And they have to have one player from every team?
Yeah, they do.
Nice. All right. American League.
Yeah, American League outfielders, we have for finalists, we have Mookie Betts, Michael Brantley, Joey Gallo, Aaron Judge, Austin Meadows of the Rays, Josh Reddick, Eddie Rosario, George Springer, and Mike Trout.
Shin-Soo Choo?
Yeah, that's a good snub. He's having himself a really solid year. Not a ton of RBI. He's only at 32, but over 10 homers, 287 batting average. Nice little bounce back year for him over in Texas. I would have said Max Kepler. That's a good one. He's at 19 homers, 51 ribbies, 272 batting average. A part of that team that's doing really well in Minnesota, like we talked about, 51 runs scored. Jorge Soler is someone I think too that probably could have garnered some votes from that Kansas City crowd. He has over 20 homers, 50 ribbies, batting .235 though, so that's probably where you lose him. The other snub I would say is probably Nomar Mazara.
And Max Kepler got a bid or no?
He did not get in.
So that was one of your snubs, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my snubs.
Yeah, great call. He destroyed the Red Sox in one game alone. Anyway, starters.
I would say probably Mookie, Springer, and Rosario.
So based on performance, you have to put Trout.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, shit. That's a bad one on me. Yeah,
listen,
you have to put Trout.
No, going back. Stick to your guns.
All right.
Trout, Springer, and I would say Trout, Springer, and either Rosario, Kepler, maybe Whit Merrifield, but I obviously maybe I'd obviously like to see Betts, but I guess Rosario.
Yeah. I don't know. Anybody else that you think got snubbed as a outfielder of the American League before we go to DHs?
No, I think you nailed them. Shin-Soo Choo is mine, and Michael Brantley maybe, but
yeah, Brantley, that's a good one. He had that really hot streak for a bit.
Yeah, he did for sure.
Yeah. All right, so AL finalists for DH: Nelson Cruz, JD Martinez, and Hunter Pence of the Texas Rangers.
Ew. Hunter Pence, ew. I
mean, almost batting 300 and has more ribbies than JD.
He's also hurt, so.
Yeah, he is hurt.
Listen, JD, just because he's strictly a DH 9 games out of 10, but for me, he's a starter. I can't. No, I don't think they missed out on anyone there. I think those three have.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm kind of surprised Shohei Ohtani didn't get ballot stuffed in there.
Yeah. That's a great call. Especially he did the whole cycle thing, and
exactly, yeah,
that's a great call. He's having a pretty good year. Jordy, look at you. You're a pro. You're a pro.
Yeah. I try to be, man. I know he's only been a Yankee for about a month, but Edwin Encarnacion probably could have been stuffed in there too. His batting average isn't very high, but combine the Yankees with a 20 and 50 right now, 24 and 54 to be specific. He could have.
Yeah, but he did nothing before that, and who knows? Like once they get their 2 7-footers back, if he plays.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, let's go over. Or do you want to try to predict pitchers, or is that too wild?
Why don't you just give me who in your opinion should be starter for each?
Ooh. Let me get the
I'll
pitching
go.
stats
I'll go
up.
National League first. I think for me, the starter has to be Hyun-Jin Ryu.
Yeah, it's dominating right now. 9-1,
Yeah, 9 wins.
127. Yeah.
Yeah, 9 wins, 90 Ks, 127 ERA. Innings is a little lower than a guy like Scherzer, but I think, you could throw in, but I think, I think for me, National League, I think he's my guy.
Yeah, he has to be. He's got to be the guy. And then Scherzer, he pitches innings 1 and 2. Scherzer does 3 and 4. Probably Castillo or Hamels 5, the 5th and 6th inning, maybe the 2 of them. And then just start using bullpen dudes as the later innings go on.
Yeah, I feel like only the starter goes. I feel even now though, I feel like the starter only goes 1 inning. They kind of got away from the 2 inning thing.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
And honestly, the pitchers is tough because it comes down to who pitches like the Sunday before or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Who's cold?
Yeah, whatever BS that is.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But the point is, I think for me it's Hyun-Jin Ryu.
No, that's the answer. Scherzer on name brand alone might get some sort of nod, or he comes in for the second inning, whatever ends up being.
And he's having a great year.
There's a lot of guys who are having pretty great years. Luis Castillo, great on him, and I'd be interested in seeing what the Reds do with him as we enter July and it rolls on. But AL, I think it's a pretty interesting conversation. Greg, who do you think should be the starter for the American League All-Stars?
It's so hard to go against Justin Verlander,
yeah,
who has 142 strikeouts, 10 wins. His ERA is higher than a guy like Charlie Morton.
But here's where Verlander gets a lot of nods. His WHIP and opponent's batting average are astronomically low.
Yeah. And I just think that all in all, I think he has the best for starters. He has the best bid for it in the American League, because I don't even know who else besides Morton you'd put in the conversation.
Maybe like a guy like Lucas Giolito from the White Sox, just because he's having such an outstanding year. He'd be like in the same conversation as Jake Odorizzi, guys that they've won 10 games. They're having pretty solid years. Giolito's another just a high strikeout, high number of strikeouts. Garrett Cole maybe, but his ERA is a little bit higher. His record is a little more suspect than anybody else that we threw out there. So not a huge, widely sexy pick, but Mike Minor, same kind of deal there. Of his opponent's batting average and ERA are his ERA is low, but average is high, WHIP is high. There's a lot to be thrown around in the old noggin if you're trying to look there.
I love it, Jordy. Yeah. I love it.
And I guess kind of to wrap a bow on it, because it's the same thing of that we were just talking about with Scherzer. Is if you're Major League Baseball and you're the two managers, do you just kind of all come together and say we need it to be Verlander and Scherzer for just the marketing value, or do you go Hyun-Jin Ryu because he's having just an absolute dominating season, or Charlie Morton because he'd be, from what it looks like, the more analytical pick? I don't know. It's I think a part of it, obviously, it's for show and it's for entertainment and all that stuff.
I think Cora goes Verlander because of the whole he used to be at Houston thing, and Verlander's been so dominant for so long, and who knows how many more of these he has left. And I think on the other hand, Roberts with Ryu, that's his guy. That's his ace in the hole. And again, depending upon how things shake out pitching wise, who pitches the Sunday and Saturday before.
That's a really good point too. Yeah.
I think
that's why you don't see a lot of those pitchers, is because they just pitched.
Yeah. Morton would be good, and that's an AL East thing, maybe, but like if this was last year, the best pitcher clear far and away was the guy who won the Cy Young, and he started the All-Star game for a reason. And
Verlander's also let up a lot of home runs. I'm just looking at this now. 21 of his 21 home runs, which is way higher than any other pitcher that we've talked about here, except for Mike Minor, who's at 11, Jose Barrios at 12, Garrett Cole at 16. I mean, wow. Just a comment there more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, you could chalk that up to. Sorry, I'm a million miles away. You could chalk it up to his division.
Yeah.
Maybe not division, but their schedule and the American League, and even just like the MLB has given up an astronomical amount of home runs. Period.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Alone, but at least they're solo jacks. They're not a lot of multi-home run.
It's a very good point there.
Multi-home run. So those are the players. Let's get into teams.
Yeah, we'll go back in the usual business, hot and cold teams. Greg, it's been an interesting week in baseball. We mentioned the Phillies and their coldness. We've mentioned a lot of other things. But we're starting the American League. And Greg, I'm going to go with a team that you and I have been waiting to see them start to pop. And it seems like things may be starting to come together for the Cleveland Indians, winners of 7 of their last 10 games. They are finally getting over the hump run differential wise. They're starting to score more runs offensively. We talked about it a little bit when we were talking about the different players. They're starting to get it together. They're still in the bottom third in terms of average and runs, but Lindor's creeping up closer to 300. Carlos Santana having a renaissance year, almost at 20 home runs. They have Bowers, who we've talked about a couple times, in hot players and rookies. I mean, these guys, Greg, I think that, if they're really starting to turn that corner, this could turn into a pretty exciting AL Central chase after the All-Star break.
Yeah, and I mean, they beat up on the Rangers, or they split with the Rangers this week. Sorry to add to your thing. The Rangers playoff team, but they beat up, or not playoff team, but close to, and they beat up on them. They took care of business versus the Tigers, and I think great pick, Jordy. You're right. We've been waiting for them to make a move, do something, get their butts in gear, if you will, and maybe this is the jump start they needed. Maybe it's the wrong time with the All-Star break coming up next week, and team that's hot and then goes into the break, tends to cool off a little bit just because everyone does.
Yep.
Come out of the break. Just some people get rejuvenized, but that's mainly pitchers, and then hitters, you lose the ball, it takes a game or two, what have you, to get back into it. So I mean, I think great pick, Jordy. Great pick. I don't know if I can see Minnesota tanking that badly, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, they're right back into the wild card conversation, though. They're 2 games back from Tampa for the first spot. They're a game behind the Red Sox for the second one, tied with Texas, who's still hanging on there. Oakland's is clawing their way up. So the wild card chase is becoming much more exciting all of a sudden. And as we enter into July and trade rumors are going to be swirling all over the place, we've seen some trades happen before the All-Star break. And I think maybe now that there's only one trade deadline, we might start to see more of them. So who knows? Who knows how this is all going to get approached? And as teams start to face each other more and more, I think we might see teams beat up on each other. It'll be pretty exciting to see.
Agreed. My top team would have been the Red Sox, but because I chose them last week, I unfortunately, Jordy, team that I've been avoiding like the plague, a team that I sincerely have not wanted to talk about. But a team that has,
it pains them,
that can be avoided no more. And that was the New York Yankees, who in the last week, Jordy, okay, swept the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yep.
Won 3 out of 4 versus the Houston Astros.
Yep.
And have a potential to sweep the Toronto Blue Jays based on how things shake out on a Wednesday before the Red Sox and Yankees see each other in London Saturday and Sunday this coming weekend. 9-1, but just this last 7 days, the Rays, the team they needed to beat, the team that's chasing them, they essentially distanced themselves and gave themselves a 6-game cushion just by beating the Rays 3 games in a row. And then the Houston Astros, who 2 years in a row have either made the World Series or lost the team that won the World Series. So they're obviously a powerhouse, and the Yankees dismantled both of them.
Yep.
This is a team that, again, like I said, I've been avoiding them like the plague. But with the major injuries, you would have thought this team would have tanked, or this team would not be good. This team would not be able to put up as many runs as they put up. Au contraire, my friend. Au contraire, the second most runs.
Contraire, mon frere.
The second most runs in all of baseball, scored only behind the Minnesota Twins. The same exact record with one more loss than the Twins. Both have 51 wins, however. And the leader is 55, of course, with the Dodgers. But the Yankees are only 2 losses behind the Dodgers. And they only have 2 more losses than the Dodgers. So plus 96 differential this season. But the last week has been very good to the Yankees, and hopefully, for everyone's sake, not just mine, but everyone's sake, in the whole entire baseball world, hopefully the Yankees hit a wall and fall off their bikes, if you will, and choke it in the playoffs as they've been known to do.
We got to mention they set a major league record, most consecutive games with a home run. That was at 28. I don't know. They're playing right now if they've hit a home run or not. I'm going to check this as I talk. But the other thing we got to mention, you finish as I check. I was going to mention pitching, but
home runs are great, but they also broke the major league record for most home runs by a single team last year and lost in the first round of the playoffs.
Oh, DJ LeMahieu home run, just hit a home run for the Yankees, so they have extended the streak.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but what I was going to mention was their pitching. Their pitching has been outstanding this year. We got to discuss it a little bit. I know we did with guys like CC a couple weeks ago. But James Paxton, who came over, has been absolutely great for the Yankees. Masahiro Tanaka having a solid year. And I mean, their bullpen has just been great. They've stacked up different guys as the years have gone on, and it's really all coming together. And Zach Britton, Tommy Kaline, Adam Ottavino, who they picked up, they've been outstanding. Aroldis Chapman's closing the door for them. So as their starters have looked, better and better, I think it's just a great combination of them, both with their offensive prowess, as we were just talking about, and if this continues, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Yankees continue to move forward in the AL East. If that lead of 6 and 8 over Tampa and Boston remains the same, if it widens, if it narrows.
Did you mention Domingo Germain?
I did not. No, that's a great pick. Or great point.
He's 26 years old. Pretty sure this is his rookie year, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He is second or tied for most wins in all of baseball.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Pretty good for a rookie, and ERA 3.86, averaging just about 10 Ks per every 9 innings, so pretty nominally good.
Nominally good.
And only giving up 19 walks, so having a great year for him there. But yeah, I mean, the Yankees avoid them like the plague and can avoid them no longer. Let's move to the National League.
All righty.
I started. You started.
Yeah, then you can go right ahead. Start us off in the NL, Greg.
I'm gonna go Washington Nationals.
Damn, I was gonna pick them. All right.
You know what? I'll let you talk about them. I'm gonna go with the Dodgers. I'm gonna go with the stock answer. The team that I have not talked about, you have not talked about, just like we've been avoiding the Yankees like the plague. We've been avoiding the Dodgers. Swept the Rockies 3 straight games. 3 out of 4 from the Giants this week. and currently split with a rubber match versus Diamondbacks today, or which would be Wednesday. But for me, the Dodgers, unreal little streak they got going this week. Great season they've had. They only have 9. Yes, you heard me correctly. 9 losses at home, Jordy.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, talk about a home cooked meal. On the flip side, the worst team in baseball, Baltimore Orioles, have 9 wins at home.
Oy.
So if you can picture that,
Oy.
one has 9 losses at home, one has only 9 wins at home. Ironically enough, the Orioles have more wins on the road than they do at home. But yeah, for me, the Dodgers have to be at their pitching lights out, their hitting moonshot after moonshot, just depth everywhere.
Absolute
We talked about
bombs,
last
yeah.
year. We talked about last year in the World Series. Just look up and down their lineup, something like the Yankees. No hole 1 through 9 is not dangerous. And a guy like Rich Hill, who's who they go between
He's
their
had trouble.
What?
He's had trouble the last couple of years with injuries, and he has a little bit this year. But
No, I know. But I'm saying is like
great year though.
They've been rotating with their 5 starters and the 4 starters, because like you said, Rich Hill got hurt, but the 4 starters in Ryu, Buehler, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, and Kent Maeda have really shouldered the load, and their ERAs are all sub 4, 1.27, 2.96, 3.07, 3.76, and then Rich Hill, who's hurt, like you mentioned, but he's at 255. So they've just been, and Kenley Jansen is unreal.
Great closer.
Save opportunities versus percentages. So top to bottom, this team gonna be hard pressed not to see them in the World Series for a 3rd straight year.
Yeah, do you think that we see a Machado like deal that they make to just bolster their lineup so much more?
It's tough because last year they had to do it because of the injuries, but this year, knock on wood, if no one gets hurt, last year they lost Seager, right?
Yeah, they lost Corey Seager for a bit, and that's why they went out and got Machado. But yeah, I'm
not sure they need to do that. I mean, I think they would only do that to compete with an American League team. But I think,
okay.
Yeah, I think if you learned anything from last year, it's you just need guys who can perform in the World Series. Like Machado, sure, he did fine for them, but come World Series time, he got toasted by the Sox.
He was the last out.
Exactly.
All right, my NL team, we kind of blew it there, or blew what it was going to be. It's the Washington Nationals, winners of 7 of their last 10, and all of a sudden, right back into the thick of things. In terms of the AL East, they're only 2.5 games behind the Phillies for 2nd place. They are a few games behind Milwaukee, behind Arizona, behind Colorado, and the Phils in that wild card chase. St. Louis is in there as well. But yeah, their run differential's going positive. We mentioned Max Scherzer in the year he's been having, but offensively, they've gotten healthy and they've started to really hit the ball very well. As that run differential has expanded more and more, they are figuring it out. And Anthony Rendon, you mentioned him when we were talking about All-Stars, batting over 300, over 50 RBI already, 17 homers, absolutely doing everything for them. You have guys like Howie Kendrick, who been a journeyman, having a great year as well. Adam Eaton, kind of the unsung hero, if you will. He has scored 45 runs for this team. Not the team leader, Rendon is that, but I mean, just another guy that's really fitting in pieces all over the place. Victor Robles, Matt Adams, Kurt Suzuki, all guys that are really stepping up when the Nationals need them to. And this has been something where the Nationals had a lot of confidence in thinking that they were still set in adding Patrick Corbin, and he's having a good year for him too, although he's 6-5, but still pretty solid season. ERA sub 4, and it's probably going to continue to go down. But yeah, I mean, it's been a great week for them. If I'd give them one knock, their bullpen is not the best, but when their starters are firing, the bullpen has a light night. So you can just hope that the offense gives you wide enough margin that you don't have some sort of crazy meltdown in the 9th inning.
Yeah, and I think the more important thing there is you 9 games or 8 games out of first. It's not. I mean, as a fan of a team who's 8 games out, it's not too insurmountable. But more realistically, you're talking about the wild card, and the wild card, the central teams are just going to beat up on each other.
Yep.
Right. And the leader of that division is at 43 games. The next one's at 42 wins. So if I'm Washington, they've now put themselves, like you said, back into wild card talks, like right there with the San Diegos, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies, the Phillies, the Brewers, the Cardinals. They're right in the conversation. You could argue that the only team that is probably out of it at this point in the National League is Miami Marlins, and they have 30 wins, and the wild card's at 42. So realistically, that's probably the only team that's 100% out. But I would say anyone who is not around the 40 win mark come All-Star break, which is end of this weekend, I would argue will be out in the National League for wild card.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be really fun to see what these teams do, because we've kind of theorized of who could make moves, and the teams that would be on the reverse side of that, you have to have a seller where there's a buyer, and unless like a Pittsburgh or a Cincinnati, I wouldn't think St. Louis would sell off, but if they fall off in July, or the Mets do, it is going to be, we might be seeing a lot of teams standing pat or trying to like really claw out for a deep bench guy and maybe having to overpay. So
exactly,
it's good that there's a nice level of competitiveness right now in the National League.
Exactly. Well, that's true. We were talking about this. Who was a bat that you'd go out there and get? Who's like, because a team that are sellers, you would think, like the Angels, they're big guys. Trout, they're not selling him, right? You could argue maybe Seattle has some guys to sell, but Toronto is super young. Baltimore is rebuilding. The White Sox rebuilding. The Tigers rebuilding. The Royals injuries / rebuilding. And then you go in the National League, the Mets, the Marlins are rebuilding. The Pirates and Reds are still in it, but also rebuilding. And they got rid of their guys last year. The Diamondbacks are in it. The Padres are making moves. They're going out and getting big names. They're not in the mood to sell them. And the Giants, all their big names are old as hell, so no one wants them. But like maybe the Giants sell Evan Longoria, or like there's what team is out there selling big names or has a big name to sell? Like you said, the Mets I think might be your best option, but even then, would you really want a Robinson Cano?
Yeah, it's tough. It's I mean, they're not throwing away Peter Alonso. They're not throwing away. Yeah, it's who you're going to get is going to be the biggest question out there. And I think it's going to be some random waiver, not waiver anymore, but a guy that would be a waiver wire August trade, Justin Verlander excluded here, that is going to be probably overpaid for. And it may make all the difference. A guy who comes off the bench and provide some late inning pop or whatever it is. But I don't know if it remains this competitive, it's great for baseball and it's great for us as fans, and keeps the blood flowing.
Yeah, I love it. Jordy, you mentioned you went to some games this weekend.
I did.
Now you've been saying this bamboo nonsense. Let's jump into quick Phillies talk and give me what this whole bamboo nonsense is. And now that you've seen the team up close and personal for, let's say 10 times, what are your impressions on the field?
So I've been to 12 games according to the MLB Ballpark app.
And I crushed it when I said around 10 times. So thank you. Thank me.
Thank you, Greg. You're not called the prophet for nothing.
Thank me for getting that right.
Yes. Thank you for having me live my life. Yeah. So to back up, I went twice. I went Friday night for Chase Utley night. He officially retired as a Philly. Gave a great Chase Utley speech, as you might expect him to. Phillies fans will remember his speech after they won the World Series, and Chase made a nice nod to it of saying, hey, the Phillies want you to do this night. They want you to give a speech. And Chase said, hey, you want me in the stadium with a microphone? Are you sure you want me to do that? Do you remember what happened the last time? Greg, are you aware of this, of Chase Utley at the Phillies parade in 2008?
No.
So he gets up to the mic. They parade down Broad Street. They go into Citizens Bank Park. They all come up and they have speeches, and Chase goes up. He goes, "World champions." Everybody starts chanting, starts clapping and cheering. Then he comes back in and shouts out, "World fucking champs." And the place goes completely nuts. And a great moment, only to be outdone by Jason Kelsey at the Super Bowl parade. In terms of both cursing and just epicness. But so Chase makes a reference to it. The bobbleheads they handed out was Chase Utley at the parade with a microphone in his hand. And the speech he gave was very classy. He was talking about how Philadelphia fans can be crazy, but they're the best fans in baseball, which I'm not going to let you comment on. So turning comments off there. But then, so, they have a bunch of different guys there.
Shades of Papelbon running through my head here.
Oh, man.
And interjecting quickly, nothing will be more epic. Well, something could, but nothing without a major catastrophe will be more epic than David Ortiz. This is our fucking city.
Yeah.
You can say every championship parade that I've been to, which is a lot more than you, everyone screams "World fucking champ."
Sure, I've only been to one because we were in Berkshire.
What I'm saying is, like, you were like, oh, when the Phillies did this and the Eagles did that, trying to say, but everyone swears at parades and that. Everyone does the championship parade cussing. The thing that is the all-time ultimate moment will forever be Ortiz. This is our fucking city. And the best part was he didn't have to pay a fine. He didn't get in trouble. So
no. Yeah, I think the FCC, the FCC even said, like, there's no fucking way we're fining the Red Sox for it.
So real quick, for those who don't know, before Jordy goes on his diatribe about the weekend, the Nationals went in there and won 3 out of 3 because the other one was postponed.
That was in Washington. They went on the road.
Okay.
They were in Atlanta, lost 2-3.
The Phillies lost 6 straight before the last 2 games and beating the Mets Monday and Tuesday.
No, 7 straight. They lost the finale to Atlanta, was swept by Washington in 3 games. And then over the weekend, they were swept by the Marlins in 3 games.
So I was going 7 days back because of our, we're 7-7.
Oh, yeah, but there was the streak got pretty bad. To finish, though, quickly on Chase night. So he gives his speech, and it seems like everything's wrapping up. And he, it seems like everything's wrapping up. And all of a sudden, you hear the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia music, the theme song, I forget what the song's actually called, but the violin music. And they play the clip of Mac's letter to Chase Utley. And he's reading it. And you're like, wait, hold on. And they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Rob McElhaney." And it's Mac. Mac and Dee, who are married in real life. Rob McElhaney and Caitlin Olsen are sitting behind home plate. And all of a sudden, Mac gets up and he has a Phillies jersey on with Mac on the back, as you might imagine Ronald McDonald would have. And he has a glove and brings one out to Chase for the ceremonial first pitch. And Chase and Mac finally had their catch.
Well, explain that finally had their catch.
So the letter that I mentioned that they read out is a letter that Mac wrote that mentions a lot of things, a lot of inner feelings about Mac's life, of not having a good relationship with his dad and thinking Chase doesn't, and saying that they'd like to have a catch one day and that it would be a real home run. And Greg, this moment really was a real home run. Did I lose you? Oh, you're muted. Greg, you muted yourself. Greg, are you still there? Hello?
Jordy.
Yo.
I sent you a text.
Yeah, I just saw
it. So is this Mac in real life or is this actor Mac? Like, which one wrote the letter?
So the character on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia wrote Chase Utley a letter.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, and it was truly was a real home run moment, Greg, and it was pretty awesome. So then they introduced the lineups and everything, and you were expecting to hear Kashmir Chase's walk-up song, the Led Zeppelin song, played at some point. And finally, when they introduced the Phillies, Kashmir plays. Chase Utley's the first one to run out. He goes out, and they actually give him a baseball to toss to first base, and he gives Cesar Hernandez a big hug. And then the Phillies go out, and decent game that night, an absolutely masterful Nola night. But the offense really couldn't get it going. They tried to hit a lot of, to answer your question earlier, of what I've seen of the Phillies in 2 days. Both Friday and Saturday, it was a very windy night, and the wind was blowing in at Citizens Bank Park, and they still tried to go for the long ball. A lot of pop flies that announcers on the radio were saying may have been home runs. I'm not necessarily sure about all of the ones they were saying, but maybe a few. But they weren't trying to hit line drives. They weren't trying to put the ball on the ground and grind out base runners that way. So, I mean, that's probably one of the bigger knocks. Obviously, the last 2 days against the Mets, the first time that they've had back-to-back games with 4 or more home runs in both games since 2009. So if they're becoming home run dependent, that's not necessarily a great thing, because a lot of these guys on the team can hit for average and can run the bases well. And I think that's a way that they can really help salvage this. Kingery's having himself a great power renaissance and looking great that way, but he also is a guy that can hit for average. He runs the bases really well. His Instagram handle is not or Twitter handle is not Scotty Jetpacks for nothing. Cesar Hernandez is the same boat. Michael Franco, though, he's had a little bit of time off with moving guys around the lineup, and he's looked great the last 2 days. But again, if they're going to be home run dependent, that's good. You're going to have a lot more of these nights where the bats go ice cold, and you got to just be smarter about knowing that it's windy and that the ball's getting knocked down.
I was able to watch the last 3-4 innings of the game last night, and while the bullpen ended up getting the save and the hold and the save, I mean, how many times are they going to load the bases in late innings?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too, is that Friday and Saturday they had leads. They had they had both leads that the bullpen blew because of either overuse or just guys who frankly aren't that clutch and should not be pitching in later innings that do that and let up a lot of base runners, let these guys go around the bases. They work high pitch counts because they work high counts within at bats, a lot of full counts, a lot of walks issued. And then the Phillies on the back side of it, they've had opportunities where they had runners in third base that they couldn't bring in. So, I mean, I know injuries, there's a lot of injuries, and that's been sort of the running talk of it's not his fault that Aaron McCutchen busted his knee. It's not his fault that the bullpen's been hurt in this place. But I mean, also at the same time, you need to hit line drives. You need your bullpen guys to figure their shit out. I mean, this is something that we talked about the first episode of the regular season, Greg, this year, that the Phillies bullpen is going to be a recurring theme. And you saw why. It's just a lack of clutch on that end. And it's not the only problem the Phillies had. I just spent 5 minutes explaining why their bats go cold. But I don't know. It is frustrating to see Eflin, Arrieta, Pivetta, if they're not having an absolute, if not spinning an absolute gem, to see them turn the ball over in the 6th inning, and you don't know if the final score is going to be 2-1 or 20 or 21-14. Look like a fucking NFL score.
So, big move at the deadline. I don't think they need a bat. It sounds
they need someone on the back end.
Sounds like they need an arm.
Yeah.
And the guy that everyone keeps talking about is the closer that the White Sox have.
Yeah, that actually be a pretty interesting pickup, because they have. Are you talking about Colomb?
They said his name last night, and I'm looking it up now. But my understanding is that the White Sox are probably gonna be sellers, and he's coming up on his free agent, so they could get some really good guys for him. Yeah, I'm talking about Colomb.
Yeah, he's a former closer from Tampa Bay. Really good closer. He was involved in that trade last year and actually did pretty well for Seattle as well in their charge to trying to make the playoffs. Yeah, he'll probably be one of the bigger names out there. I know, what's his face from San Diego, Kirby Yates. Kirby Yates is probably going to be another big name out there from San Diego. But we saw this a couple years ago. We saw this in 2016 when the Cubs and the Indians were tearing the cover off the ball, had some issues that need to be settled up on the back end, and they both went out and did it. And that carried them to the World Series. Obviously, they had the offensive firepower to do it. But when your pitching staff can help out on those nights when the offense isn't totally there, because if you remember that Cubs run, they had some games in the NLCS where their offense wasn't totally there against the Dodgers, and they really had to grind out and win the National League, and it worked out for them. Obviously, they won the World Series, but you need to shore up the bullpen if you want to have any sort of chase, down the line.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. The Red Sox need the same. But no, I think maybe even get a starter if you can.
Yeah, they probably do need a starter. That's a really good point. They've had Velasquez go in and out of the bullpen, and they've even had him at times as the opener. They've used him. They've used Cole Irvin. They used Jared Eichhoff. These guys that have rotated through the 5 spot. It seems like Velasquez has been the answer right now, but I prefer him in the bullpen. So if they went out and got a starter, preferably a solid and tried and true lefty to mix things up, I think that would be a really good addition for the Phillies as well. But it's pitching that they need to add, and the bats, especially once some of them more get healthy and get back into their groove, I think they're gonna be just fine.
I agree. I don't agree that they're going to be just fine, but I agree that
Greg, we need 90 wins, man. We need me to make some money.
Pretty lofty goal there, Herb.
Yeah.
This is the halfway point of the season, correct?
Pretty much close to it.
Well, no. How many games have they played?
I think they're at like 78. Hold on, I'll tell you in a second.
They've had some rainouts.
Yeah, they're not at 81 games played yet. The Phillies are 41-38. Yeah, 79 games played. Bingo.
Because the Red Sox are at halfway, so that's why I was confused. Yeah.
Don't they try to line it up that the halfway mark actually runs right around July 1st anyway? Or I guess they used to when it was April 1st was the start date. But
the difference is the Red Sox have only had one rainout.
Yeah, the Phillies have had a lot. They've had a lot of games pushed back. The built-in slow start to the year for rainouts didn't really happen, and as we saw with Washington, there was a bunch, and they've had some here too. Some double headers built into August now and in September. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, so we just tough it out here in New England, and we actually play games in the rain. So little ricochet shot there, but Jordy, when you were at the games this weekend, any stadium snacks to report on?
Yeah, so one that I have a gripe on. So this is more of a complaint because I did not get to try this. Jared is a big fan of the kielbasa. He calls it the kielbasi. I guess is that a Polish thing? Maybe. But so you can get the what?
I said it seems made up.
Yeah, it could just be a Jaredism. But so there's the bulldog that comes from Bull's Barbecue, which we've talked about a lot, that I think is technically of types of sausage link. I think it's technically a kielbasa, but this was an actual advertised as kielbasa on the grill. We sat in the upper deck on Friday night. And I saw that, and I wanted to try it instead of just getting a regular Italian sausage or a hot dog. And I was waiting in line for the kielbasa, and it was a fairly long line. I figured, maybe they ran out or something. And I see them bring out the kielbasa, Greg. I'm probably 10th in line. They only brought out 2 to put on the grill. I don't know if it's... No, I'm dead serious, and you know exactly what I mean. Anybody that's gotten a hot dog, a sausage, whatever, at a baseball game or at a hockey game, a basketball game, a football game, you see them with a fucking row of hot dog, sausage, burgers, cheesesteak, whatever the fuck it is, a big-ass row or pile, whatever it is, to cook en masse. They're cooking 2 fucking kielbasa for a line of 10 people. It was bullshit. So I had to leave the line. I went and got a regular hot dog. It was great. And Citizens Bank Park hot dogs are pretty good. Not my top baseball hot dog that I've ever had, but still pretty good. But that just really annoyed me because I was excited to try this. I was in line. I had a beer. I was all ready to go. And then, these guys, just didn't know how to cook. They didn't know how to cook in mass.
So maybe that's Matt shouldn't have talked about it because now it's all famous and popular.
Maybe, yeah, maybe the line's going to be even worse whenever the next time I go is.
Maybe all the people listen to the pod of him talking about it, and now everyone just goes.
To be fair, I never noticed this specific stand the last time I sat upstairs. This is the first time I noticed it. The Bulldog at Bull's Barbecue, that always has a pretty long line to it, the Bull's Barbecue area, which, Greg, that might have to be our first stop whenever you finally do make your way down to Citizens Bank Park.
Also, yeah, what also about a fucking psychopath move, by the way? Like you said, only cooking 2 at a time.
Yeah, what the fuck? Like, I get it if you don't want it's windy, it's it's upstairs, it's open, it's windy. Like, you don't want the wind to like cool it off, but it's on a fucking grill. Figure your shit out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. What did I have? Oh, I did not eat at the game Saturday. It was a 4:00 game. I'd eaten lunch prior and I ate dinner after the game. I got a Geno's steak at Xfinity Live across the street.
Steak, no cheese.
Yeah, no cheese. No cheese wit. That's the order for me.
No cheese. Jordy, I have a little ode to history here for my bleacher creature.
Ooh, all right.
Homage? What'd I say? Ode? A little homage to history.
Okay.
On this date, June 26th, in 2001, Pittsburgh Pirates manager did this act when his guy got thrown out of first. Do you know what it was?
Flipped somebody the bird?
Stole first base. Literally.
Oh, he actually took it.
Yeah, Lloyd McClendon picked first base up. It's the famous one. If you haven't seen it, this is 2001, so however many years ago. Picked it up, walked off, took the entire base after he got tossed in the game after his guy's clearly safe and before they had a replay and all that, so the umpire's word is final. Took it, walked right in, threw it down the little walkway there and walked out. And I'm not sure how long the game was delayed after that, but he had
nothing beats the Braves minor league manager that like went full army with the fucking Rossen bag. Remember that guy?
Yeah, and he like did like the whole
threw it like a grenade and all that shit. Yeah. Or Sweet Lou Piniella was great too.
Agreed. Also, yeah.
We didn't mention Kapler getting tossed twice.
Well, that's Joe West being a scumbag. The least surprising news ever. Joe West.
First ever tosses. I don't know if it's as a manager. I think you could probably confirm whether or not he got tossed as a player, but first ever as Phillies manager.
Unlikely that he got tossed as a. I mean, you're talking about a guy who let his wife beat the shit out of him.
Who?
Oh no, sorry, different Red Sox right fielder.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a Red Sox right fielder who let his wife beat him up. Not like let her, but like something happened and she had a breakdown, and he like showed up to the game with like a black eye, and obviously if he had retaliated or put his hands on her, that would be the story, and he would be the one in jail and all that stuff. But because it was a woman hitting a guy, nothing came of it.
Not going to comment on that, but it's pretty crazy. All right, so I have a bleacher creature / another historic, I guess, milestone or something to mention. I don't know if you saw this guy on the telecast in Game 1 of the College World Series final championship series. They showed it's Michigan and Vanderbilt playing. They're actually going to Game 3 tonight. But in Game 1, ESPN showed a guy in the stands who was in on one of the Michigan teams in the 1960s. He, in a doubleheader, threw in both games. He pitched in both. 2 complete games, 19 innings pitched, and threw 313 pitches, all in this doubleheader, Greg.
That's kind of crazy.
That's nuts. And apparently he had the game-winning sac fly in the second game, so He did it all himself. He was like that UCLA pitcher that we talked about in the Women's College World Series.
So speaking of College World Series, deciding game tonight, Michigan Vanderbilt. Who you got?
You probably got to go Vanderbilt, but Michigan's offense has been pretty outstanding. If not for Kumar Rocker, the guy who threw the no-hitter in the Super Regional 2 weeks ago now, Michigan probably is walking away with the trophy. But now that it's 1-1, you'd think Vanderbilt, the number 2 team in the country, probably does it. A lot of guys who are probably going to go right into AAA, AA, maybe even some September call-ups there. But I'm going to pull for Michigan because I like the Wolverines a little more than I like the Commodores of Vanderbilt.
David Price's team.
Yes, David Price's team. He has a bet with a certain famous Michigan alumnus that's the president of another website that we don't really need to give advertisers to. But yeah, I don't know if you saw that bet, but it's pretty funny.
What does David Price have to do if he loses?
His is he has to do a pizza review with said alumnus, and if Michigan wins, if Vanderbilt wins, then the alumnus's Red Sox writer has to go work for Price for like a week.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Also, a rival baseball podcast.
Yes.
A Red Sox podcast, but
he has both. He has 2, right? He has a Red Sox and a regular one.
He does. Yeah.
That'd be fun to try to get. We should try to get him on. That'd be fun. That'd be fun to try to get a guest.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, shoot our shot. If you have any suggestions for guests, let us know in the comments or tweet at us. Thunder BLG.
So Jordy,
Greg,
shifting gears. July 1st coming up. July 4th, all that. What are you more looking forward to, the NBA free agency or the NHL free agency?
It's a good question.
You can only pick one.
I'd probably go with NBA free agency. It's just more entertaining.
Is it entertaining because it gets a bunch of coverage, or entertaining in that teams are like doing the whole, oh, come pitch me why I should be there, all that nonsense?
A mix of both. I mean, there's just more wacky stories that come out of this thing. Like, remember the whole Clippers kidnap DeAndre Jordan thing? Like, you don't really get those stories in hockey, which I think is more of a testament of one sport versus the other. But it's just hilarious to hear some of these like wacky stories that come out of NBA free agency. Some unpredictability. There's more unpredictability in the NHL free agency, but some of the NBA free agency. Like when I saw LeBron sign with the Lakers last year, I wasn't like, oh my God, where's this coming from? You knew he was leaving the Cavaliers. You figured probably LA and longer shot of some other teams out there. But I just the wacky stories that come out from the NBA, I think they're just a little more entertaining. The NHL, obviously, I keep a little more close of attention to, and Third and Girl keeps a little more attention to NBA free agency, but I like the stories.
I love it. Good for you.
Yeah. I think both are going to be fun, though. I mean, there's a lot of free agency or a lot of free agents, big names for both. If you're a fan of either league, a lot to watch out for. And if your team is in the mix for any of those names, it could be a stressful, couple days, couple weeks, however long it takes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And both drafts having finished this past week and all that stuff.
How you feeling after the draft? So those Celtics and Bruins.
I mean, the Celtics having all these picks didn't get one guy that can help them tomorrow. And that's sort of what they needed. And now they're talking about going after Kemba Walker, which means no Kyrie and no Rozier and no Hofford, which would completely change their team around. And they already let Baines walk, and they traded him. I think their ultimate goal is to try and get Kyrie, and I don't know, man.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Really interesting. I think they're gonna. I don't know.
Yeah,
I love Jordy because
the whole time they were talking about building for the future, and that is Brown, and that is Tatum,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the Kyrie move, in theory, for how young he was, should have been that, but Kyrie really just them adding Kyrie put the pressure on in terms of, okay, well now go out and win a championship because you have one of the best point guards in the league, and because they failed to do that, the story now is they underperformed. They had a terrible year when back-to-back years making the playoffs and really overperforming last year. They should not have gone as far as they did with their quote-unquote top guys getting hurt. But this year, underperforming in comparison really has led to this team just to crumble and fall apart at the seams. And for me, I'm more focusing on the Bruins because that window's closing in terms of Bergeron and Marchand, and even though those guys are some relatively young, that window is closing in terms of their long-term abilities, and they do have some young guys like the McAvoys of the world who need to be signed this offseason, or else they have the restricted free agency, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
for me, I'm looking forward to that. The Bruins need some defensive help, and hopefully, and maybe they get Coyle for another. They'll have him for another year. Maybe they get him to sign an extension and keep Johansson and keep that line for a whole year together. That'd be pretty sweet.
That would be really fun to see.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't know. My only thing, Jordy, is biggest gripe. Wimbledon every year, July 4th. What do you think about that?
What on July 4th?
Wimbledon?
What, the final?
No, it like starts the 1st, so it just takes place always. Like July 4th happens while
Wimbledon's happening the fortnight. So the first round's during the 4th. The 4th is usually right around the final. Which I guess, I haven't heard anything about Wimbledon starting. So
this year it starts the 1st, according to.
Yeah. So it would end then on July 14th. Yes. So it's a little. I guess it's kind of weird. I mean, the way that the tennis majors all line up, it's just kind of a quick transition from the French Open to Wimbledon, because the French Open was like 3 weeks ago. I guess it's not really, you aren't really saying much when golf goes pretty quick between their majors, especially now that it's just 4 months in a row instead of Masters and then 2 months till US Open and all that stuff. But I guess with tennis being a 2-week tournament instead of 4 days, it's also kind of weird that way.
Jordy, anything else to report?
No, nothing much. I'm decently happy with the Sixers draft, Flyers draft. It's a wait to be seen. A lot of people were giving him shit that they didn't draft Caulfield, and they went with this defenseman Cam York, who they kind of need some more young guys at defense, build out that way. They've added obviously a lot of vets, so that'll be really interesting to see. I'm just waiting for them to officially say that Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are going to be on the roster opening night. Was actually looking though at when the Flyers are going to be in Nashville. Third and Girl really loves the city of Nashville, and maybe try to make a little trip down there to see the Flyers play the Preds.
Farabee BU product, but yeah, that has to be why they traded. Well, that has to be why they traded Subban, for the space and for those young defensemen.
Yeah, the Preds, with the moves they made.
Yeah. Did you see? Did you see the? What was that? Oh, Roberto Luongo just retired today.
I did see that. As we were recording, he retired. Do you see how?
Explain to the people.
So, everybody talks about hanging him up. Roberto Luongo literally hung up his goalie pads in the way he announced them over a wire, as if you saw some shoes. He put up his goalie pads. So officially announced it. And what a career, Greg. I mean, he went from Florida, a little bit of time on Long Island, as they say, but mainly remembered as a Florida Panther, then that stretch of those really good Canuck teams, and then back in Florida where he had a little bit of a resurgence in the last couple of years. But surely going to be missed, and it'll be kind of opens the door now to really hear, going back to free agency, if Florida really goes in on Sergei Bobrovsky, like it's been widely believed that they were going to. I think this just adds another wrinkle to it.
Jordy, it's been a hell of a pod. I unfortunately have to.
Yeah, we got to wrap this thing up.
Skedaddle. However,
However,
yeah, I really, yeah. Close this out.
well, thank you, Greg, for taking the time to do this. I appreciate it as always. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Tell your friends about it. Leave us a review, 5-star review. Greg and I'll figure out some way to give you a shout out. Matt and I will as well. But go
Maybe
tell your
some
friends.
free merch, Jordy. Why don't you give some people some free merch? I'm waiting for my Thunderblog or my bullpen cart T-shirt.
Ooh, we should make T-shirts. That's a good idea.
Maybe a sweatshirt.
Now
Maybe
that I have an income stream again, maybe I can invest in those. But yeah, make sure that you tell your friends, all that good stuff. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Podcoin. Search the Bullpen Cart. You can get obviously this podcast. You can get the Fun V Tailgate, Blue Line Icing.
It's like they have no idea what they're.
And as Greg plays out some music, I will play us out. For my man Greg the Prophet Piatelli, I am Jordy Cannell. Have a great weekend, everybody. And go Phils.
Go Sox.
Bamboo season.